Welcome everyone to Politics Today. I am Terry Ikumi. Let's begin. The Supreme Court today reserved judgment in a suit filed by 19 states against the federal government challenging the constitutionality of the laws established in the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and two others, to a date to be communicated to the parties. The argument in the suit is that in bringing a convention into the Nigerian law, the provision of Section 12 must be complied with. According to those who filed suit, the provision of the Constitution necessitated a majority of the states' houses of assembly agreeing to bring in the convention in before passing the EFCC Act and others, which was allegedly never done. Hence, the state argued that any institution so formed on the basis of reducing UN Convention to law should be regarded as an illegal institution. Well, at the resumed hearing on Tuesday, the Apex Court held that its judgment will apply to Imo, Bauchi, Ogun, and Osun State, while Anambra, Ebonyi, and Adamawa states announced their decisions to withdraw their suits. Now, the Attorney General of Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who was present in court as the defendant, had craved the court indulgence to take the process they filed on Tuesday morning. Justice Owani Abaji thereby granted leave to the defendant to use the reply on point of law filed today. The number of states challenging the constitutionality of the EFCC and others has now climbed to 19, including Kogi State, despite the withdrawal of 3 states, that's Anambra, Ebonyi, and Adamawa states. So far, the states in the suits include Kogi, Kebbi, Katsina, Sokoto, Jigawa, Enugu, Oyo, Benue, Plateau, Cross River, Ondo, Niger, Edo, Bauchi, Imo, Osun, Nasarawa, Ogun, and Taraba states. Now to the FCT. Street beggars in the Federal Capital Territory have until Sunday, the 27th of October 2024, which is just 5 days from today, to vacate the streets of Abuja. And this is the ultimatum given by the Federal Capital Territory Administration. By Monday, they will be picked up by law enforcement agencies if they are found openly begging. The Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, made the disclosure in Katampe during the flag-off ceremony of the construction of an access road to the newly flagged-off judges' quarters. According to Mr. Wike, the number of persons who stay on the roads is alarming and it poses a threat to security in the metropolis.
In terms of security, let me say clearly now, we have declared war. Abuja is returning to beggar city. If you know you have a sister, you have a brother who is a beggar on the road, please, from next week, we will carry them. We will take them out. I mean, it is embarrassing that people who come in, the first thing they see are just beggars on the road. Sometimes too, they may not be beggars, they may be criminals pretending to be beggars. We will not allow that. So I'm giving you a public holiday from now to Sunday. From Monday, we will pack them out.
Now, a former member of the House of Representatives, Farouk Lawan, who was convicted of bribery, has been released from prison after serving a 5-year sentence. In a statement which he signed personally and released today, Mr. Lawan announced that he had left Kuje Correctional Facility after completing his jail term, stating that today marks the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Mr. Lawan, if you recall, was the chairman of the House of Representatives ad hoc committee which was probing the multi-billion-naira petrol subsidy fraud in 2012. He was convicted and sentenced to prison in 2021 after he was caught on camera receiving bribe in a sting operation set up by Mr. Femi Otedola, who at the time was chairman of Xenon Petroleum and Gas Limited. Well, for more stories, here's a political roundup.
The Senate has announced a 6-man ad hoc committee to investigate recent allegations leveled against Senator Ashiru Yelola representing Kwara South. Senator Ashiru, who during plenary came under Order 42, raised as malicious and unfounded impressions created by the NDLEA on his press statement issued on October 21, describing it as an act of witch hunting. He notes that the agency singled him out for personal attacks and impugned his privilege as a senator to freely contribute to debates on the floor of the Senate. The Senate president, who expressed doubt about the timing of the agency's allegations, clarified that he wouldn't jump into any conclusion. The committee is expected to summon the NDLEA to explain the recent allegations. Meanwhile, the executive chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Mr. Olaolukoyede, says Nigeria lost over $500 million to cybercrime in 2022. He made the remarks at the National Cybercrime Summit in Abuja, where he also revealed that cybercrime accounts for a significant percentage of 3,455 convictions recorded by the Commission in the past 1 year. The EFCC is setting up a cybercrime research center for globally competitive research as an alternative avenue of empowering Nigerian youths.
We have reached a stage in our nation that necessity should compel a change of narrative from criminality to productivity, from idleness to usefulness, and cybercrime to cyber wealth.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has attributed regionality as the beginning of Nigeria's socio-economic and political challenges, which has stifled the socio-economic and political development of the country. Chief Obasanjo explained these when he played host to members of the League of Northern Democrats, led by former governor of Kano State, Ibrahim Shekaru, in his presidential library home in Abeokuta, Ogun State. The former president, however, expressed optimism of a better Nigeria if the right thing is put into place.
At the time of our independence, we are probably the only country, or definitely one of the few countries in Africa, that did not have one leader.
In other news, the International Institute of Experts on Political Economy and Administration is calling on states that are calling for the scrapping of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to rethink their actions. The Institute's Executive Vice President, Africa Affairs, Professor Tunji Ashaolu, warns of the financial implications of such on the revenue of states that depend largely on allocation from the Federation account. He calls for a robust dialogue between the federal government and the subnational to resolve the matter in a way that will be beneficial to all.
If the other states that are petitioning the federal government for the scrabble of this are agitating, what are they want to say with all the ones that have been, the share that have been allocated to them all this year? Are they returning it?
Lastly, the All Progressive Congress APC in Adamawa State is calling on the people not to lose hope on the country, describing the present state of hardship as temporary. The state organizing secretary of the party, Mr. Mustafa Ribadu, stated these while presenting cash gifts to 700 vulnerable persons in Yola, the state capital.
It just started, it's just a token, but I think it may go a long way, especially looking at the hardship our people are going through. And some giant steps may start by just a single step. It's just a token, and we really intend to do more.
Well, there you have the political roundup. Now, a federal high court in Kano has sacked the chairman and members of the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission, KANSEC, from overseeing the upcoming local government elections slated for the 26th of October 2024. The court ruled that the KANSEC leadership are card-carrying members of the ruling New Nigeria People's Party and do not meet the civil service requirement of being at least on grade level 14. Now, this decision, handed down just 4 days before the election, was delivered by Justice Simon Amobede in response to a suit filed by Aminu Tiga, a member of the All Progressives Congress, against KANSEC and other state officials. Justice Amobede also directed law enforcement agencies to ensure immediate compliance with the ruling. Well, now to the conversation of the day. The EFCC and the states challenging the suit establishing the commission and two others. Let's now start the conversation with Barrister Fred Nzako. He's a lawyer and economist. He joins us from our Lagos studio. Barrister, welcome to Politics Today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm sure you're familiar with the latest development where the Supreme Court reserved judgment. Everyone had hoped that by today we would have this matter put to bed once and for all. But without having a conversation that is sub judice, can we talk about perhaps the legality or morality of this particular situation? You know, the average Nigerian hears this and looks at it from a sentimental point of view, questioning why states or state governors would not want to be investigated. But talk to us and put this up, perhaps as a base to our conversation, the legality or morality of this particular situation.
Thank you, Terry. I'm glad that you mentioned the issue of sentimentalism because most of the issues that arguments around this foundation of EFCC are arguments in sentimentalism and emotionalism. But we operate constitutional democracy, and since 1999, we have confessed to be a federal republic that operates constitutional democracy to be guided by the rule of law. And Nigeria as a country has had a very long history of anti-corruption fight. The EFCC came into being in 2004. Before 2004, Nigeria had some measures, internal mechanisms of fighting corruption. And that does not mean that without EFCC, corruption will not be fought. Now let us look at the issue and the argument, without going into the legalities of the matter, because one could not accuse us of discussing a matter that is sub judice. After all, the Supreme Court has reserved judgment, and what we are doing is to more or less enlighten Nigerians about the core issues, just the same way a judiciary correspondent will enlighten the people with what's going on in the court. Now, EFCC was established on account of more or less a compression of United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which was an international treaty that Nigeria is a signatory to. And we have had in our constitution that before you bring in an international treaty to make it a law, a municipal law in Nigeria, it must pass through duly constituted process that is clearly specified in Section 12 of our Constitution. And anything short of that, such a treaty will not be a law in Nigeria. And any law established on that treaty will look like a law established on a quicksand. Like we say in law, you cannot build something on nothing and expect it to stand. What we are talking about is foundational, fundamental. If you don't breathe life into an inanimate institution and expect it to have a life of a colossus. Any institution that should have a life must be foundationally given such life. And what does the law provide? The law provides that, yes, National Assembly will make the law, but the states will have their concurrent input. And the question is there concurrent input by the houses of assembly of states in Nigeria, at least majority of them? The good thing is that the provision of the Constitution did not say any definite majority, whether 2/3 or 1/3 or whatever. It said majority. So we can take it that even simple majority will suffice. 36 states of the country, at least simple majority means 19 out of the 36. So you now ask, is there anything wrong with 19 states at least endorsing the establishment of EFCC? The answer is no. There's nothing wrong. Then the next question will be, why would they not be involved? It is obvious that something was wrong when EFCC was established. It's not the fault of the EFCC, but the fault of the system that overlooked very critical aspect of our constitutionalism and our lawmaking process in a federal republic of Nigeria. Mark that word, federal. We can't be answering federal on paper. We must be federal in attitude. We must be federal in our procedures and lawmaking processes, such that the federated states must not be cast away when their inputs are required. Otherwise, the FCC will only be serving the federal government and not have anything to do with the states or the local governments. That is the crux of the matter. And anybody who argues otherwise is only trying to either be emotional or be sentimental.
All right, address this conflict, if I may put it that way, between that convention, which produced the EFCC, and the Supreme Court ruling of 2002, as was pointed out earlier today by Mr. Babalola regarding the Ondo Attorney General versus the Attorney General of the Federation, that the National Assembly can legislate on corruption matters across the country under the exclusive legislative list, considering that the funding comes from the federal.
The matter that had to do with Attorney General Ondo State versus the federal government has nothing to do with the foundation of the EFCC. It has nothing to do with the establishment of the EFCC. Of course, there are so many matters that have been handled by the Supreme Court, many judgments that concern EFCC that have been given by Supreme Court, but none had ever talked about the foundation of the EFCC. And that is the issue. So we should not begin to jive away from the real issue. The real issue is EFCC establishment, did it follow the process laid down by the Constitution? And recall that our Constitution provides that any law that is not consistent with the Constitution, that runs contrary to the provisions of the Constitution, will become invalid to the extent of its inconsistency. So if EFCC establishment process does not follow the laid down procedure in our Constitution, then the establishment is invalid to the extent of such inconsistency or such clash with the provisions of the Constitution. So one should not begin to bring all those issues.
But what about the argument?
The argument?
But what about the argument of where the funding comes from? The EFCC is oversighting funds shared from the federal to the states.
The EFCC, as a matter of fact, the state did not ask the federal government to fund the EFCC on their behalf. If the EFCC is working for the federal government should fund it. Then I'm
talking about monies received from state governments from the federal government.
The Constitution provides that the state government should receive money. After all, that money comes from the states as well. Take, for example, where does the bulk of our money come from? Petroleum resources, they come from the states. Mineral resources, they come from the states. Taxation from the Inland Revenue Service, they come from the states. So the federal government cannot exist without the states, but the states can exist without the federal government in a loose federation, because what we are even asking for, before the unitary system that came into being, the states were existing very strongly, or rather the regions were existing very strongly with very loose central government. So with the unitary system, the central government became very strong, whereas the states became a lot weaker. So one should not begin to advance the argument that the funding that is coming from the federation account is going to the states. After all, it came from the states to the federal and to the federation account, and then now down to the states. But most importantly, what does the Constitution provide? We cannot pick and choose what to obey as far as constitutionalism is concerned. If any matter or any provision of the Constitution does not go down well with our expectation as a people, we have option of review, an option of looking into it and then reviewing the Constitution and changing those things that go contrary to our expectations. So one should not say, oh, because the money is coming from the federal government does not make the money. The states make the money. Every fund that goes to the federal government originally came from the states. So that argument cannot stand at all.
While we may not be able to go into the legal complexities, just so that we don't appear to be subjugated, we can talk about the implication of this. If the Supreme Court ruling favors these states, considering the UN convention that produced this and Nigeria's fight against corruption, recall that that convention was primarily to focus on the fight and encourage countries to fight corruption. How will Nigeria be perceived? Nigeria's image in the eyes of the people, for those of the international community, with regard to the fight against corruption?
The laws of Nigeria are for Nigerians and not for the international community. What Nigeria should be worried about is how well are our people taken care of, and how well do we recognize and respect our laws, the laws that we make for ourselves, such that if anyone is not good, we can amend. We should not be more particular about satisfying the international community as against ensuring that our laws are made formidable for the good governance and development of our country. That is what is very important. And it's also important to state that it is never too late in time to run on the right track if you realize that you are running on the wrong track. Some people argue
Barrister, if I may come in here, just so that,
yes.
Let me just respond to what you've just said, because you talked about our laws being our laws and we should not be that much answerable to international communities. But you understand that if corruption is so much affecting a society, that it affects foreign investments.
There is nothing wrong with states fighting corruption. That's what we're saying. And there's also nothing wrong with going to the states to give their concurrence to the Establishment Act of EFCC. the act can be amended so that the states will now give their concurrence. There's nothing wrong with all that. So we cannot semanticize and say, oh, international community is looking at us. In that case, we will subtract from our laws and then ensure that we undermine our processes just to please the international community. It is good to do things because we are in a committee of nations. But it is not right to do things that will hurt us internally just to please the outside world. What is important is this has been established. The Supreme Court itself has also said that this was an act that was predicated on UNCAC, United Nations Convention on Anti-Corruption, in a matter handled by the Supreme Court. And of course, we don't expect that the Apex Court will approbate and reprobate at the same time. So we don't need to begin to push the Supreme Court to the point where it will no longer look at the laws the way they are and begin to look at sentiments. It's a court of policy, not a court of equivocation or ambivalence. Supreme Court is not noted for such ambivalence.
But Barrister Nziako, we have seen states reject beautiful reforms like local government, autonomy and financial independence. And the concern now would be if this goes to the state, whether or not, yeah, of course, we're waiting for the Supreme Court judgment, but if this goes to the state, will it be ratified by the state houses of assembly? Because even they had rejected their own independence. I mean, the state houses of assembly as well. But then, beyond this, you talked about states. There's nothing wrong with states fighting corruption. Yes, take us down memory lane and talk about perhaps the mechanisms that states have in place to fight corruption.
You have to realize that states have the capacity to fight corruption. It's pedestrian to argue that the states cannot fight corruption without a federal government agency. It is akin to saying, let us wipe away state governors and then let the president continue to administer the entire country. Let us wipe away houses of assembly and then let only National Assembly make laws for all parts of the country, both exclusive and residual laws on exclusive and residual lists, and even the concurrent list, is akin to saying, wipe away the judiciary of the states because you have the federal structure. The Constitution contemplates that there has to be, in the country, a federation that will have the center and the federating units, each one with its own responsibilities. And it does not mean that it's only at the state level that you see corruption incidences or occurrences. There is also corruption at the federal level. And if EFCC seems to, or rather claims to be doing extremely well, it is not even enough to undermine the law that established it, because it will look like because somebody is a fake lawyer and he has won some cases in court, you allow the person to continue being a lawyer when the person did not go through law school nor be called to bar. We have incidences like that. You cannot say, oh, because, oh, the man is doing well on this side, let him continue, even when the foundation is faulty. We must establish strong foundation first and then build on that, because even as we speak, EFCC has never had the courage to call a former president of this country to account for his actions. Never, not even for once. Not even to sit down with them and ask questions, not to talk of investigation. But you see EFCC going to investigate governors that are still in office, and then there will be back and forth between the governors and the agencies. Corruption does not start and end at the state level. There is corruption everywhere. And for us to establish an institution that will fight corruption across the land, such institution must have the buy-in of the states. You could even have asked that the local government should be represented, but because local government can be represented by the states, at least that level of federal and state must put hands together, bring in their contribution for such establishment to have the kind of life that we expect it, such that just as it happens in other countries, the president or anybody for that matter can be called to give account of his stewardship. There's nothing wrong with it. So that we don't have an institution that will be available only for the federal government to intimidate the governors or intimidate the federating states at will. That's why they said some time ago that this catch-em-hold-em syndrome should not hold. And we must do things following due process of law. It is that due process of law that when it is breached, that is what will even drive away foreign investors, not this cat and hole attitude that we operate.
Now, from all you've said, it almost suggests that you do not think that the EFCC is strong enough to fight corruption at a certain level.
Well, from antecedents of the EFCC, we are looking at the trajectory, the antecedents, and the historifics. If it has been able to do so, we will see that the Nigerian people have been crying about so many issues and problems of corruption, which have become very endemic in our system. But it does not start and end at the state level. That is the crux of the matter. So EFCC must extend it to every part and every level and tier of government, irrespective of whose ox is God. And that is the thinking of those who made that convention at the United Nations. Other countries who adopted the same convention are running along that path, but in our own case, it has been fine-tuned in a manner that it seems as if it is a willing tool in the hands of the federal government or any party in power at the center against the federating states. And that is what we are saying should not be. But fundamentally, the establishment of EFCC, NFIU, ICPC, and the Money Laundering Act should be such that it must have the buy-in of the federating states in accordance with the provisions of our Constitution as exemplified in Section 12, which is very clear and very simple.
Okay. So as a way forward, are you saying that the EFCC should be strengthened in whatever way, but should be ratified? Or are you saying that states are capable of fighting corruption at their own level? Perhaps you could suggest how corruption can be fought at the state level if the EFCC is not needed to intervene in state matters.
If, for example, going by the theory that you have laid down, that EFCC is operating for the federal government, in which case it concerns itself with only federal issues. Just like we have the Federal High Court that concerns itself with federal laws, and you have concurrently the state high courts that concern themselves with state laws. The same way EFCC can concern itself with federal issues of corruption, whereas the states will now establish their own agencies that will fight corruption. Kano, for example, in the most recent past, has been struggling to bring their immediate past governor to come and give account. And the optics are there indicating that the federal government is shielding the immediate past governor of Kano State. The Kano State did not tell you that they have no capacity because they have their own court. They didn't tell you that they have no capacity to investigate any infraction, the same way every state has the capacity to do so. But when you begin to give this headmaster impression, this overriding impression that anything that is not federal cannot work, then you are undermining the federal structure that we have. You're also undermining that name, federal, that is in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There must be a difference between the military and the civilian democracy that we practice.
But you agree that these institutions, especially at state levels, must be strengthened enough such that they don't become political tools as well. Because the argument for some who listen to things like this would be that when one party hands over to the same party, no investigation is done. When it's an opposition party, then there are concerns as to oppression. So how do we strengthen institutions at that level? Now, pay close attention to what's happening at the local government level with regard to the elections and the appointments overseen by the governor. You see what's happening and the allegations that state governors make sure that their parties win. How do we strengthen the anti-corruption body at the state level such that it is not going to be used as a political tool?
The fact has to be made that the federal government is not puritanical and should not be seen as such. The federal government is not holy and should not be seen as such, to the extent that only the states are corrupt. The fact remains that while the EFCC serves the interest of the federal government, it should not serve the interests of the state government because the states are not.
But Barrister Nzeko, my apologies. I don't think you heard the question. Barrister Nzeko, I don't think you heard the question. The question was more about strengthening this anti-corruption institutions at the state level.
Good. Strengthening the anti-corruption. Look, lawmaking process is an ongoing process. The same way that Kano is struggling to bring purity to its institutions. The same way every other state will bring purity to their institutions. What it takes is for the people to make demands. Because the people of every state, the citizens of every state, should not rely on the federal government in making their demands. They have peer review in all things that they do. When they go to a governor's forum, for example, they will decide on what to do. But I can tell you that it is left for the states. The same way we have the state judiciary and all state organs and agencies, we can also have the state anti-corruption bodies. And like I said earlier, I keep saying that if we have to have a counterpart one at the federal level, let the states buy in, be ensured that it is there. Otherwise, the states can establish their institutions through the Houses of Assembly. It is an ongoing process. The Houses of Assembly can establish the institutions and ensure that they operate. It is the same argument that we are talking about state police. Some people will say that the governors will use state police just to witch hunt, as if policing will start and end with the election. Policing does not start and end with the election. The primary role of government is for security of lives and property of the citizens. So if state policing will work in other countries, there's no way it will not work in Nigeria. We operate American-style democracy, which is the federal the structure that we imbibe from America. In America, they have, down to the counties, they have their police. There are so many ways this can be done. The commissioner of police in every state is by election. So we can even start on that premise. Ensure that the people who populate the anti-corruption agencies at the state are appointed by plebiscite and ratified by the Houses of Assembly. And the judiciary has a lot of role to play in that regard. It is left for us to agree on basic principles, and then we will now find a solution out of it. The solution is not far-fetched and does not lie in using one body to overrule everybody else.
Very well, then, Barrister Fred Nzeko, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on Politics Today.
Many thanks.
Barrister Fred Nzeko is a lawyer and economist. We'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to the Ondo governorship election. The countdown continues. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Politics Today. Now, there are 25 days before the Ondo governorship election. There are 17 political parties in that race. Let's speak to one of them. Yesterday, we spoke with the All Progressives Congress. We're speaking with the People's Democratic Party now. Ayo Fadaka is the special advisor on media and publicity to the Ondo PDP Governorship Campaign Council. Mr. Ayo, welcome. He joins us virtually. Welcome to Politics Today, Mr. Ayo.
Thank you very much. Very good evening to you and dear viewer.
I'd like to start off with an update. What's the update on your demand for the replacement or redeployment of the Ondo State Rec, Oluwatoyin Babalola? The APC has stayed adamant on that. I think INEC has also written to you. What's the update? Have you given up on that, or are you still pushing for it?
Well, thank you very much for that very beautiful question. We have raised our fears that Toyin Babalola is an indigene of Ondo State. Not that, because she has lived her entire life here in Ondo State. We have also said that she has very good friends in Ondo State and that she's in bed with the APC in Ondo State. And the funny thing about all this is that each time we raise our fears about Toyin Babalola remaining the INEC commissioner in Ondo State, it is the APC that comes to defend her, to say, no, she's this, she's not this, she's not that kind of thing. Our worries is that why must the APC take it upon itself all the time that we raise our fears about Toyin Babalola to defend her and to try to poke holes into our allegations against the lady. We have nothing personal against the REC. Ours is that as stakeholders, as a party that is striding and contesting seriously in the election, we want a situation whereby we are assured that there will be fairness, there will be equity, and there will be justice in that election. As far as we care, and as far as we do know, Mrs. Babalola, as REC Commissioner in Ondo State, is not going to be fair. She has a bias. We have told INEC this, and INEC knows why it is remaining adamant to say she is going to superintend over elections. That in itself is funny. I think what INEC should care about here is its reputation as we go into this election. INEC should care enough to know that as far as the people of Ondo State are concerned, we want an election whereby the REC and all those that will officiate in that election will be free and fair. And that even concerns those that are going to man our security on the day of the election. We want those that will officiate in the election as we move towards it to be very, very fair. All we desire in the coming election is that we want it to be free, we want it to be fair.
All right. INEC and the APC have insisted that she's only a resident and not an indigent, and that there's no constitutional breach or legal breach with regard to she remaining as the REC. Now, also, you've said that she's in bed with the APC. What evidence do you have to show that she's in bed with the APC? And are your demands on constitutional or legal grounds or on grounds of morality?
Well, I may not be able to quote the particular section of the Constitution, but I know that as far as the law on indigence is concerned, once you have stayed in a place for 10 years, it is assumed that you are already an indigent of the said state. On that account, we have said very, very consistently that Tony Babalola schooled here, lives here. We even went ahead to say that our parents' house is number 3, Majakodumi Street in Ijoka Road in Akure, where she continues to stay till now. And INEC is saying that she's only a resident. Even when will INEC bring somebody who is a resident in a particular state to come and superintend over the elections of the state? It is not fair. It is not, because as a resident in any given state, it is taken that you have your biases, you have your friends, you have your allegiances, you have your opinion on issues that concern the state. We have said very consistently here that as far as we care, as far as we know, she's biased towards the APC. And I do not see why INEC wants to push us into an election with our hands tied behind our back. And that is not going to be fair. If they do that, we will fight. Like Spartans.
All right, Mr. Faraka, campaigns must have commenced, I believe, because we got the statement a week ago saying that the PDP was about to commence campaigns. I also recall that sometime last month, your governorship candidate alleged intimidation by the ruling All Progressives Congress. Since the commencement of campaigns, are your people still being intimidated by the ruling All Progressives Congress in the state?
Well, they do not have the power to actually intimidate us. They are only misusing the privilege they have for being in power. You will see that even by the gear I'm putting on, I'm coming in from the campaign field. So campaigns have started. We have begun to talk from one local government to the other. When our candidates mentioned something that looked like intimidation, it is based on our desire to use their democracy park, which ordinarily hosts all rallies, Nakure or those states, to hold our flag off. We applied to the state government. We want to have a flag off on so day here. We made the inquiries. Our inquiries told us, and even the official in charge told us that the place is free, that we should bring in our letters, which we did, and we are asked to even prepare to pay the sum of about 12 million, which we said, no, why should it be as expensive as that? But whatever it is that they even wanted to take, we were ready to pay. only for government to come out about 2 days to the rally to say they are now denying us that space on account of the fact that another body has applied for it about 2 weeks before we did. And on the day of the rally, it turned out that the place was vacant. Nobody used the place. That is the kind of dishonesty that characterized the APC in this place. They see government as an extension of their personal desires, which is absolutely very wrong. So as far as we care, the APC do not have the muscle to intimidate us in this state. We are on the field and we are acceptable to the people. And this is just very normal.
Okay.
Yes, Nigerians are currently very challenged. The lack, the want that characterize, and the penury that characterize the life of an average Nigerian today is working in our favor. And to that extent, we know that as far as this election is concerned, victory shall certainly be ours.
Oh, beautiful. I just wonder if you have the political structure for that, because it would seem that the APC in your state, which had its house in disarray following the outcome of the primaries, has put its house in order, and that's according to the spokesman of the campaign council who told us that yesterday. So what's the structure like in the PDP as it stands right now? I also recall that during the rally, the APC had said that it would win the vote, and it had some governors of the APC in attendance. What sort of support are you getting as well from your state, the other PDP governors, and the national? Not to mention the situation of the party at the national level.
Well, we are a political party, and as a political party, we have the political structures. We're working assiduously on field, and we are certainly going to win. Our party do not have any challenge as far as we are concerned in Ondo State. We have a closely knit party. We are united. We have a common purpose, just a single common purpose that binds us together, and that is winning this election, and we are working assiduously to that level. As far as you were trying to say that, well, there are challenges in the party, even maybe at the national level, that is not our concern at this level now. The only thing we care about is November 16. And our care about November 16 is to ensure that we win the election. And as far as we have gone, as far as we have worked in those states today, we will certainly be, things are turning in our favor. You were making a reference to these other guys in the APC of having close ranks and united again. That is a mere theatrical meeting. Nothing can ever make them to close ranks again. It is not my desire for them, but it's the reality of the challenges that confront them today. So I may not want to delve into that much.
All right, beautiful. I'm sure you would want to talk about governance under the APC so far. And perhaps you want to talk about that and maybe back up your claims with some facts, because I know you had raised some issues around health, I think allegations of fraud against the incumbent governor within just 10 months. Perhaps you want to talk about governance now.
Well, within the last 10 months, the sitting governor here has made an income of about 100 billion naira. And we challenged him about 2 months back that Ondo State has made this much money and that we do not see development going on in any part of our state in any manner whatsoever. And what did we see? We began to see that there was a contract approval starting from 26th of September. On 26th of September, very ludicrous contract approvals. For instance, on the 26th of November, government approved the sum of 45 million to produce 2,000 copies of year 2024 diary. That is 4 months to the end of the year. That is absolute stealing. 4 months to the end of the year, there is a state secretariat where all offices are running as we speak, even now. On the 26th of September, government again approved a contract of 90 million naira to renovate the office of the Commissioner of Finance. In another surprise one, government again approved the sum of almost 1.3 billion to renovate the external walls of the VIP lodge in Government House. Another contract, a single block of residences for judges is going to cost government another 30 billion naira. You know, these are contracts that have been awarded to cover up stolen funds. And the people of Ondo State must begin to rise and challenge government that all these contracts, all these things that you are doing, that it is not clear, that there are questions to be answered on this. For instance, then 26th of September, government approved the sum of I think the sum of about 877 million, close to $1 billion, to renovate the fence, the perimeter fence of the Government House. They said they approved it on 26th. Meanwhile, before the end of September itself, that job has been completed. Those are the curious things Lucky Aiyedatiwa is doing on those states.
Mr. Fadaka.
Yes, please.
While you talk about why you question some of these spendings and say that the people of Ondo State need answers to these questions, I don't know, it would seem as though the people are happy to hear him talk about 73,000 naira new minimum wage, which is above the 70,000 naira minimum wage. What do you say to that?
Well, the people are not deceived. Ondo State is rich enough to pay its workers a minimum wage of 100,000 naira. We say that the announcement of the 73,000 minimum wage for the lowest paid worker in Ondo State, the announcement just came when Aiyedatiwa was launching his campaign. He made it a campaign issue. To that extent, he was trying to pull wool over the face of the workers of this state. We are saying that if indeed he's seriously concerned about the welfare of the workers in this state, he would have taken action months ago. Before now, I tell you, before the federal government sent the bill to the National Assembly asking for an increment in the minimum wage bill to the to the National Assembly here, Edo State government on its own has pegged the minimum wage of workers at 75,000 naira. Some other states have equally done that, and when those states are not even restricting themselves to the 70,000 benchmark of the federal government. So I hear that we are now going on the campaign podium to announce that the Ondo State government will pay workers a minimum wage of 73. He is not taken serious by the workers at all.
Very well then. Very well then. So it would seem that some persons will also question the character of your candidate, Mr. Babalola, who is a former deputy governor of that state. Some would question his pedigree as well, because he's been in multiple parties. The APC that you talk about, he's been in that party. He's gone from the PDP to the APC back to the PDP. He was in the Zenith Party. He was in a Social Democratic Party. Some would question if this man is not the same as the man you're demarketing at this point.
Well, show me the number of Nigerian politicians that have remained in the single party since 1999. Mr. President himself started from AD. From AD he went to AC. From AC he went to ACN. From ACN he came to APC. As much as I care and as we care, we see in Babalola a person who has the requisite experience to be governor today, having participated fully in politics since he was about 19 years old. Then, as a 19-year-old, he was chairman of his ward. Arising from that, he became a supervisor in his local government. Leaving that, he became the caretaker chairman of his local government. And again, he was elected as the chairman of his local government. From that level, he went to the National Assembly as a member of the House of Representatives. And from there, he again became deputy governor. As far as I care, this is a person that decided to chart a career in public service. He knew his honors from the very beginning, and he has remained very, very consistent in being a career politician with records. Unlike the man who is governor today, who I would just describe as an adventurer into politics.
Okay, so sorry, we're almost out of time. So perhaps you might want to speak to some of his records as well, because it's common knowledge that he was impeached as deputy governor, and some of the allegations against him at the time were included financial recklessness, abandonment of office, gross misconduct. Maybe you want to speak to that, and why the people of Ondo State should ignore that kind of record.
For the records, he was not impeached as deputy governor. He served his term out. And as to the issue, you mentioned was that there were issues of financial recklessness against him. Those issues never saw the light of the day. Babalola is an emeritus deputy governor of Ondo State. Nothing can take that away from him.
So you're dismissing the allegations because these allegations exist, just as you're alleging some of those things against Ayedatiwa. These are allegations against your candidate as well. Should they be overlooked?
I don't see the allegations against him. You just told me that I was impeached as deputy governor, and I said that is not correct.
I also said that he was alleged to be financially reckless as deputy governor by the State Assembly.
Those who allege that could not prove it, and he was acquitted. People can be accused of anything, but when you cannot prove it, they are deemed to be innocent of such charges. So, as far as we care, Babalola Ajayi is a well-cultured and well-behaved young man who has served at various levels so meritoriously, and he has records of achievements at every point or portal that he has served, because he continues to distinguish himself so well at discharging his responsibilities. So if anybody is saying that there was financial recklessness, they say so because of lack of accusations to pull against him. That is the truth of the matter. He's well loved in it. Yeah.
Mr. Ayo Fadaka, I'd like to thank you very much for coming. And like I told the APC counterpart yesterday, good luck come November 16th.
Yes, we need every luck. They don't deserve that.
Thank you very much for your time. I've been speaking with a special advisor on media and publicity to the Ondo PDP Governorship Campaign Council, Mr. Ayo Fadaka. And this is where we call it a wrap on Politics Today. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your night. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.